I'm going to take a little break from Carl Jung and talk about another psychotherapist, an Austrian medical doctor, founder of the School of Individual Psychology, Dr. Alfred Adler. Now, his emphasis was on the important feelings of belonging, family constellation, and birth order. That's what he believed. And we're going to get into that. Adler did not approve of the concept of personality types. He believed this practice could lead to neglecting each individual's uniqueness. However, he did recognize that patterns formed in childhood and could be useful in treating patients who fit into them. He called these patterns styles of life. All right. Now, he believed in birth order. Adler and his followers analyzed a person's style of life by comparing it to the socially adjusted human being. The term birth order refers to the order in which children of family were born. Now, I'm an only child. My parents only had me, as far as I know. Adler believed that birth order had a significant and predictable impact on a child's personality. Now, let's talk about birth orders. I'm going to go down the list, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each. Of course, the firstborn. Firstborn children have inherent advantages due to their parents recognizing them as the larger, the stronger, the older. This gives firstborn children the traits of a guardian of law and order. These children have a high amount of personal power, and they value the concept of power with reverence. Now, usually, there's a lot to say about firstborns because I had 2 children, so I never had a middle child because I didn't have a third. But I had a firstborn and I have a youngest, and I'm an only. So the only birth order I can't talk about is the middle child. Parents usually make all their mistakes with the firstborn. Because it's the very first time they're parents. Think about it. The very first time you do anything, the very first time you drive a car, the very first time you get a job, right? You're going to make a lot of mistakes. Think about when you first started working or driving or anything the first time you did, right? Over the years, you got better and better at it. But the very first time, didn't you make a lot of mistakes? If you're like me, you keep making the mistakes. But, so, as the firstborn, parents usually don't know what they're doing, and they're reading all the books and everything because they never were parents before. By the time the second child comes along, they've already been parents at least 9 or 10 months it takes between having a child, right? They've already been parents. But also they rely a lot. They put a lot of pressure on a firstborn. Why? Because the firstborn is the oldest. Always is the oldest. So they have higher expectations of their firstborn. They might even rely more on their firstborn. Like, if they have a second or third baby, they ask, watch your brother while I'm cooking dinner, See what I'm saying? Or even as they get older, like in my husband's family, he's the youngest of 4 boys. And the oldest, Stephen, was responsible for the mother's, he was the guardian of the mother and took care of all her finances and got her in a nursing home and took care of all the money. She had a joint account, and he was like, what do you call it? I can't think of it. But because she was the firstborn, he was the oldest in the family. So that's, if you're a firstborn, usually you're a very responsible person. Your parents made many mistakes with you, because after all, they that was the first time they were parents, right? Was with you. You made them parents. Congratulations, firstborns. Alex made me a parent. I was never a parent before him. Also, not in my situation with Alex, because he's severely brain damaged. But if he wasn't brain damaged, firstborns have more responsibility because they're older. See, they're expected to do more. They're expected to know better, right? They're expected to help out. So that's with the firstborns. Now the secondborn children are constantly in the shadow of their older siblings. Just ask Austin. He's the secondborn for me, and then I stop. They are incessantly striving for superiority under pressure, driven by the existence of their older, more powerful sibling. If the secondborn is encouraged and supported, he'll be able to attain power as well, and he and the firstborn will work together. Now, Alex used to, before he got pneumococcal meningitis and was stricken with severe brain damage, when he lived at home, he was 4 and Austin was 2, and he used to act all high and mighty. He used to come up to me. This is before he got sick. When I had him at home with Austin, when I had 2 children at home, he'd say, Austin made that mess. And Austin was a late bloomer, very late. I mean, he could barely crawl. I mean, and he was sitting in his playpen or something, and he was like the perfect child. And he'd be so smug. Look at that big mess over there. Austin made that. Then he'd always say to me, Austin's just a baby. I said, really? What are you? And he said, I'm a man. He said this at 4 years old. I swear, it's so funny. Austin's just a baby at 2. And what are you at 4, I'm a man. So, yeah, I think the older children kind of like to throw around their weight, and and this would be the secondborn now. It can either, stop there, but if you have another child, then the secondborn becomes the middle child, becomes the fluff, the cream, the fluff in the Oreo, the middle layer, that creamy layer between the two between the 2 wafers, the 2 chocolate Oreo. All right, youngest children. Youngest children operate in a constant state of inferiority. Now, I know this because my husband is the youngest child out of 4 brothers, out of 4 boys. They were wanting, praying, hoping for a daughter. That's why they had him. They even had a girl's name picked out, Cynthia, so. And being the youngest, you kind of get pushed aside. Let me go on reading it, and then I'll talk about it here. They are constantly trying to prove themselves. That's my husband. Due to their perceptions of inferiority relative to the rest of their family, all right? Because now they have 3, my husband had 3 older siblings, right? That he had to live up to. He's a baby. He had to live up to 3 older. You know how hard that is, and you know how little attention the baby gets. Some people say, "Oh, he's a baby. He gets all the attention." But think about it. Mothers only have so much energy, and today mothers work. If they're working a job and then they come home and they have to get dinner ready, and 4 kids, vying for their attention. I don't know. According to Adler, there are 2 types of youngest children. Oh, this is interesting. The more successful type excels every other member of the family and becomes the family's most capable member. That's not my husband. He's probably the second type before I even read it, because he certainly ain't the first type, okay? Another more unfortunate type of youngest child does not excel because he lacks the necessary self-confidence this child becomes evasive and avoidant towards the rest of the family. And my husband has nothing to do with his 3 older brothers. We have nothing to do with them. Now, this was my husband. My husband is an extremely insecure person because he always lived in the shadows of his brother. So he's the second type of youngest child. And that's really sad. Can you identify with that? If you are a youngest child, which type are you? You know, are you the family's most capable member, or are you, lacking all the self-confidence because you're always in the shadow of your siblings, always having to live up to them? And I hate parents who throw their siblings in people's faces, like, why can't you be like your older brother? Why can't you clean your room? Or why can't you get good marks? Why are you always coming home with C's? Look at your sister. Why can't you be like her? Or, that's gonna shoot down someone's self-confidence. I mean, that's about the worst thing you can do as a parent. Compare your children. It's just horrible. Just don't do it. You're messing up their minds. Then what do we get onto? The only child. Before I even read this, okay, everyone asks me when I say I'm an only. Oh, you have siblings? Expecting, of course I do, because who doesn't? No. Oh, you must be spoiled. That's the thing they associate with only children. You're spoiled. Because why? Because if you're the only child, they have no other child to give their attention to. It's all on you. So of course, you're going to be spoiled because there's no one else vying for their attention. They didn't live in a crazy, messed up, abusive, psycho house that I lived in, okay? I was not spoiled. In fact, my parents, they didn't even buy me clothes. I wore hand-me-downs from my mother's best friend, Sherry. I lived in her daughter's hand-me-downs. Yeah, so. Only children, according to Adler, are also an unfortunate case. That's what he says. Just reading here. Due to their being the sole object of their parents' attention, the only child becomes dependent to a high degree, constantly waits for someone to show him the way, and searches for support at all times. They also see the world as a hostile place due to their parents' constant vigilance. Now, think about it. If that's all you have, that one child, you're going to be much more hypervigilant because, that's all you have, That's your only one, So if it's your only one, you're going to be overprotective. You're going to be one of these helicopter parents. It's different once you've had 2, 3, or 4 children, because you've had so many that you just can't, you don't have the time, energy, effort to do that. And you have like the royals, an heir and a spare. See, having another one doesn't put all the focus and all the drama and all the attention on the one because they're other ones. So, in some cases, I guess that could make children spoiled. In some cases, I guess it could raise narcissistic children, if you want to go deep into the psychology of the only child. People ask me, did you feel lonely? Were you lonely only? And, I was antisocial. But I can't really talk as just most only children because I was raised by in a very abusive upbringing. I wasn't raised by normal parents. My father was schizophrenic. My mother was narcissistic and abusive. So I can't talk as an only child coming from a healthy environment. See? So it's not the same. Plus, I was always compared to my mother's other best friend, Sally, her daughter, Rebecca, who is a year younger than me. So I never really felt like an only child because she was all, my mother babysat her, and she practically lived at my house. And then my cousin Stephen, who was 8 years older, lived upstairs. So he was like a brother to me, 8 years apart. My first cousin Stephen, the one that went to jail. Look him up, Stephen Palladino, Palladino, Stephen Palladino. He's dead now, but he was in that, that Walpole State Prison for a Ponzi scheme. He had like 10 years he had to do. I don't want to get into it, but like, he was like a brother. I mean, I grew up with him and I grew up with Rebecca. So you could say I had a younger sister and I had an older brother. So even though they weren't technically my siblings, it felt like I had siblings. See? But if you have an only child, the best thing I think to do is, have a lot of their friends come over, get them involved in a lot of extracurricular things like sports or activities, or so they'll be around other children. So they weren't. I think onlys too. That's why I always liked older people, because you're around adults all the time, right? If you're an only, who are you around all the time? Adults. You don't have other children. You're not living. I wasn't living with other children. Like, if you have siblings, you're living with other children. Therefore, I think it's better you learn to share. Now, I have a hard time sharing because I grew up as an only child. I never had to share my things. Well, except with Rebecca. Sometimes I had to share with her. But if you have siblings, you learn to take turns. You learn to share. Do I believe in only children? I think it's better to give your child a sibling. This is just my opinion now, okay? Just mine. I think it's better that you have 2 or 3, in my opinion. Any more than that, I think it's too much, in my opinion. You could have 10, or you could have 1, or you could have none. But you know how they say 2.3 kids? Yeah, I think 2 or 3 kids is about the ideal. I think it's better not just to have an only child, because I think it helps, your child learn to live with his peers. They're not going to learn that if they're the only one in the house, right? Besides the adults, the mother and father. They're not going to really learn how to share. They're not going to really learn how to take turns. They're not going to really learn to get along, because they see kids in school, but you know what I mean? They're not living with them. It's much different living with someone than just seeing them in school, night and day difference. All right. So that's what, Adler was very big on this family dynamic, on the birth order. And yeah, he has some interesting points there. Let me know what birth order you're in and what you think about it. Or if you're a parent, let me know about your children, if you have 1 or 2, if you're only like me. Let me know, all the onlys out there. Let me know if you're an only like me and what you think about it. Were you happy as an only? Were you a lonely only? So let me know, okay? Drop me some